Bonjour, mes amis. It's Roger once again, Mudfossil University. A little French there to get us started here. Now, I'm looking into this. A friend of mine, Heather Callahan, is a very good researcher, looking into things and takes on health issues of her own volition. She goes and looks into things on her own. She doesn't just accept what's being told to her. So she's been looking into this guy, Jerry Tennant, for quite some time, and as I have. The last I had track of him was 5-6 years ago, when I was looking into the transition metals and so forth that are in the body, and he was coming up with, he's talking about a lot of similar stuff. So let's just go from there. And then I lost track of him. Well, she came up with this thing, not this, but she sent me back to one of those early ones. And it tripped me off. So I said, well, let me see what this guy's up to now. Now I see him here. This is just recent in 2017, and this was just published September 29, 2018. Now, he's going into how does the body work with the mind? How does everything work in your body? What regulates it? What keeps it working? What heals you? And he's right about a lot of stuff. I'm pretty certain. And there's other things that he may want to look at that I think may have some kind of an effect on what he's doing, and I am desperately like to see all the things that he's come up with. But what he is talking about is voltage that you need to run your cells, and there's no question he's right. Voltage is nothing more than electrons moving, absolutely nothing more. Electrons move from point A to point B, or protons move from point B to point A. That's how it works. They're plus and minus voltages, and normally we only work with electricity, negative voltages moving from one side to the other. They used to have conventional and electron flow theory. It was called whole flow and electron flow. It's basically the same thing. It just means the potentials are opposite. And he goes into it in pretty good detail, and it's deprotonization or whatever. It's a word they have for it, which means to rip off the electrons from the hydrogen, and you end up with just a hydrogen proton, which is a positive particle, and therefore you can affect it in a magnetic field differently than you affect negatives. Obviously, it's just the opposite. So let's go from there. He understands this, and you should understand it too. It's very simple. Now, he's saying all chronic disease is characterized by having inadequate voltage. He's right, but is it just the voltage? How do you create the voltage? Where does that come from? All right, sit up straight, listen up. Excuse me. This is Roger, Mudfossil University, and today we are going to be talking about crystals and the characteristics of crystals. Trainees. Now, what are we going to learn about crystals? What is it that crystals have to offer us? Frequency stability. You say, well, what does that mean? I say, well, crystals only vibrate. Vibration is frequency. All right? The reason I'm showing you this old military film here, specifically it's the Air Force is doing this about crystals, is because they're going to demonstrate how radio frequencies work and how they can be stabilized, because you have to stay in a certain frequency not to invade other people's transmissions. So how do you do that? How do you create stable frequencies? And they just go the same, say 4,000 every single time. They don't change, they don't change, they don't change. Well, you use crystals. All right? So crystals have the ability to shake in an exact vibration. Exact. That's how they use it in your little watches and timers and so forth. It shakes millions of times a second, and then they just add them all up and they say, okay, that goes a second, and then another million, there's another second, another million, there's another second, and that's how your watches work. So they have to be pretty damn accurate, and they are. So why are they so accurate? Why does a crystal create these kind of vibrations and these frequencies? Why doesn't it just shake all over the place? Well, it's got to do with the structure of the angles in the crystal, really. So let's take it a little bit deeper. All right, now this is about oscillators. You know, when I say these crystals create an exact frequency and it's because of the angles in the crystals, I mean, I visualize that in my mind. I cannot state that as an absolute fact, but it has to. I will demonstrate, you know, with given examples of why I make these statements and why I think there is no other possibility. Because an oscillator, it's an electronic circuit, produces a periodic oscillating electronic signal, a sine wave or a square wave. A sine wave is just an up and down rolling wave. A square wave is, it goes up, straight up, goes across, goes straight down, goes back up, straight down, so forth. That's how data is transferred, by square waves. Now, oscillating means to move or swing back and forth at a regular speed, the same speed, back and forth. Oscillators convert direct current, which is, you know, like having a battery, from a power supply to an alternating current. So it goes plus minus, plus minus, plus minus, plus minus, back and forth. They're widely used in electronic devices. Everything you have uses oscillators. Common examples of signals generated by oscillators include signals broadcast by radio, television transmitters, quartz clocks, etc. Okay, piezoelectric and Fraunhofer lines, identical, same characteristics and events working in the molecular level. Piezo, if you hammer a piezo crystal, it will send electricity out. If you send electricity into a piezoelectric crystal, it will vibrate coming out. Now, the same thing with Fraunhofer lines. You have emission and absorption. Emission means when you heat up a hot gas so hot that it emits light, the light that will come out is in these exact different frequencies, red, blue, green, let's say, and orange and yellow. And you see them every time. They're always going to be there if it is that same molecule. That's the emission spectrum. Now, what else can that specific sample do? If it was cold and not emitting light, we can make it absorb light. When it absorbs light, what will it absorb? It will absorb those exact same frequencies. So one of them is going in, one of them is coming out. You put heat in, it sends them out. You send heat into it, it absorbs them. Same thing as a piezo. So there's something going on that will relate these two events to the quantum effect. And why is this happening? That they're exactly the same, but opposite. One's going in, one's coming out. One of them's vibration going in, coming out. The other one's light going in and coming out. Same characteristics, though. Okay, this is when they really knew how to teach. Just tell you the story. Here's what's going on, and here's why we're going to say that. Here he goes.
Now, let's look at some of the crystal substances that possess the piezoelectric characteristics. They are Rochelle salt, tourmaline, and quartz. Now, of these three, Rochelle salt exhibits the piezoelectric effect to the greatest degree. However, quartz crystal is most generally used because it has a greater mechanical strength. Quartz crystal, remember, it has a greater mechanical strength. Now, I want to show...
Quartz is silicon. It's SiO2, really.
Show you a piece of quartz crystal in its natural form. Now, if we were to examine this carefully, we can see that the quartz crystal has a hexagonal cross-section. That is to say, it has 6 sides. Now, also, quartz crystal in its natural form has pointed ends. Now, let's take a look at this drawing so that we can determine more about the quartz crystal. The top viewed indeed shows us that the quartz crystal has a hexagon shape, 6 sides. While the lower view points out that indeed the quartz crystal in its natural form does have pointed ends. Now, quartz crystal in its natural form cannot possibly be used in oscillator circuits. It must be cut in a specific manner to exhibit. its piezoelectric properties. I know all of you at one time or another have heard of diamond cutting. The reason a diamond is cut is to give it brilliance, and the manner in which it's cut will determine its degree of brilliance. Now, all crystals are not cut in exactly the same manner, just as all diamonds are not cut exactly the same. The properties which a crystal exhibits are dependent on the manner in which it's cut. Now, there are many different cuts, but we're only going to examine 3 basic cuts. Let's go over and I want to show you the actual cuts now. I have here 3 crystal cuts. Now, all crystals look the same, but not all will exhibit the same characteristics. Its frequency will be dependent upon its thickness. Let's take a...
All right, did you hear that? The frequency is dependent upon its thickness. Another clue.
look at 2 pieces of crystal cut and compare this difference in thicknesses. As you can see, the thinner cut here, the thicker cut here. We're indicating here that the vibration of this thinner cut, or the frequency, is greater than this cut. Now this will always hold true. The thinner the crystal cut, the higher the frequency of oscillation.
All right, that is a really, really, really important bit of the puzzle here. Now how it fits, I'm not certain, but there's something going on that causes the frequency to change as the thickness of the actual crystal changes. All right, a little later he says that we only get sick when we can't make new cells because the old ones should be killed off by a process called apoptosis, which is programmed cell death. And cannabinoids and the cannabis derivatives aid in that. And I think all fatty acids with hydroxyl groups, it appears now to me, I'm looking at it, and I could be totally wrong, I could be just spouting off at the mouth, but when I look at castor oil and its effect in the body, castor oil is of extreme fatty acid, 18 carbons in a row with a hydroxyl group on the 12th carbon. It creates products in your body. It does what's called derivatization. It can create things. It's like an enzyme. Now, what else does it have? It's all these fatty acids, all these carbons. All these carbons. Carbon is what makes your cell linings. Carbons are fatty acid lipids. They're bilayer lipids. There's 2 layers of hydrophilic and hydrophobic molecules that go back. You know, it creates a cell membrane. Let me put it that way. And they're all carbons. There's millions and millions and millions of carbons wrapped around in a ball. That's your cell membrane. So if you have certain chemistry going in and you have certain metals in your body to be able to transfer these energies, that's what they're missing. And the metals are a product of enzymes, and the enzymes are a product of bacteria. And the bacteria have to be in your gut to create your digestive system regularity in a most elegant, exquisite manner. And if they are not there, things will not be able to be digested. What you do is you take in chunks, big chunks of things, even though they go through your stomach and the acids, oh yeah, it's all broken down. No, it isn't. When it gets into your intestines, that's where the real job comes. At first, it gets rid of this and that, and it goes into acid, and then it goes into alkaline, and then it sort of cracks things apart and does things. Yes, absolutely. But when it's in your intestines, now we're in a whole different situation. We need atomic size. We need elements. We don't need chunks anymore. So who's going to come over there and break them into little bitty pieces? Enzymes. Enzymes are created by bacteria. Bacteria live in your gut, thousands and thousands of different species, each one of them having a specific job to break into specific chemistry to make it usable in your body. Now, if you don't have those enzymes, you are going to be sick. Now, you can supplement them, I think, with the castor oil in certain little spots where you have sores and you have, you know, your wrist is sore, your fingers are sore because you might have abrasive molecules in there that are not being broken up and removed, or you have things that need to be replenished in there that cannot be replenished because you don't have the molecules in there to deliver. But when you, I believe it's removing the stuff, to be perfectly honest with you, because I think that's what causes the inflammation, is a buildup of things that should have been cracked apart and taken away, and they're not able to be removed. So maybe your metals are bad, enzymes are bad. I can't tell you because I don't know of any database that lists all these things that are in the human body. And if you go in with a disease or a problem and you say, is things in my body correct? And they really can't tell you. They can say, oh yeah, you got a couple of these and a couple of those. Yeah, that all looks good. Well, those are the things you just need to breathe your oxygen. That's all. There's a million other things going in your body that are going on all the time. The chemistry of tissue is unbelievably specific, as I will now show you. Okay, you really need to go into a lot of my videos about the chemistry of transition metals because it does get a little complex, but it's really simple in its raw form. You have all of these different metals, and this is just this is nothing compared to the amount that's in your body. There's almost 100 transition metals, and every one of them, transition means they have these kind of characteristics where they can take on electrons from upper orbitals and drop them down in orbitals. That's almost unheard of. Well, it's not normal in the other rest of the molecules, elements that are in the periodic chart. They don't have holes missing in the lower electron levels. So transition metals too, they bounce up and down by holding on to one electron, and then the pH changes, they can deliver that molecule wherever it's supposed to be and pick up another one. That's what these do. They're pickup and delivery agents in your body, and there's almost 100, and they have extreme capability to attach to things. And molecules enzymes that are created by bacteria specifically go out and harvest metals. And they know how to do this. They use that in waste treatment plants. They use these kind of bacteria, and they put a whole bunch of bacteria in there. Before long, lead starts falling out of the water. Or it might rise to the surface. Or something will attach to it and break it into pieces, and it'll be able to be carried away by some other molecule that you'll be able to put in there and say, well, I can attach to that because the enzyme broke it apart, and now I have a place to attach to. It's as simple as that. And that's exactly what happens in your body. And that is what I think is not being understood well, because they're not going for the digestive system. First thing is, well, how's your digestive system? Then let's talk about the rest. If that's working, then we got a place to go. If that's not working, I don't care what you do to a person. You're never, ever, 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 ever going to correct their problem. Never going to happen. You got to get the digestive system working first. So what's the bacteria in your body? What's the enzyme? What's the metals? What is the products being delivered in your body? What are you blowing out of your lungs called carbonic acids? 3,500 different types of molecules coming out of your lungs, I know now. It's not just carbon dioxide. That's what and those are the things that blow out of you almost instantly when you have problems, and they are the things that keep your pH correct in your body. You have to be 7.35 to 7.45, and when you go above or below that, it goes into what they call acidosis, alkalosis, which is, you're too high in a pH or too low in a pH, and then your body becomes in severe problem. You can just die. But you become disoriented, and you might become sick, and you might become shaky, and you might become sweaty, and all kinds of things can happen to you in that situation. So people don't even know that might even just be the problem. And they're not blowing out these carboxylated carbonic acids fast enough. Their blood does not have the correct chemistry. I'm going to show you why I also know that the blood is the main source of conductivity in your body. You see this? This is what the blood is. This is my logo I use on Facebook and so forth. And that is where the blood comes in. One side is the artery, the other side is the vein. So one goes in and one pulls it back. And in between these outlets over here, there's a web of blood vessels that allow the tissues to absorb the whatever comes over in with the blood, and it's usually oxygen, and they remove the carbon dioxide coming out the veins, but also it's pulling everything else out. So carbon dioxide, just one of the things that's in your body that is moving out of your body, and oxygen is only one of the things that's moving into your body. There's all kinds of things have to go into glucose, and you need all kinds of different molecules and elements down to feed the sheaths and the tendons and to replace the cellular structure of these fatty acids, and to help along with the digestion of the leukocytes of all, the white blood cells of all your different stuff that they're eating that's in your body that's got to get out of there. It's got to get it out of there. So what you need is something that can attach to all that stuff and then bring it out through the veins. So let's see what attaches and how does it come out, and is there an electrical component here? Yes, there is. All right, these are these different molecules up here, these different metals. We know metals that conduct electricity. That's what they do. They are in your body, and there's almost 100 transition metals. So, and they all have some degree of electrical capability, and they're all different. They're all different. So what do we have here? We got here hands. These are the hands. I just showed you what my logo looks like. Remember where those different little spots were all the way around here? The veins came, and the veins and the arteries came back. Every one here is one of those little spots where it's leaking blood into the tissues to allow it to migrate across. These are what's called Kirlian photography, and they're still using these, I think, in Russia. A Russian, I believe, invented this. They're very sophisticated with their research, and they are much more open to research than we are here in the Western countries. And they understand what this means, and this is meaningful. And what this is, it's high voltage photographed. So you can, if let's say you didn't have any of these things down here, maybe the blood's stopping here, maybe there's something's going wrong, maybe they're not a certain color because the color indicates the intensities. There's all kinds of abilities that are being missed, that are just laughed at because they're not a pill. Now, I spoke about piezoelectric. This is Kirlian with a quartz crystal. There's something going on there. If you want to look into Kirlian, this is how it's done: high voltage, and then you have the material, a glass insulator, and high voltage and so forth, and you get this coronal discharge around, similar to what you see in northern lights and so forth. And it's just high speeding electrons impacting with and reacting with different molecules that are electrical and display in these photographic fields as more intense areas and less intense areas.